You are now listening to the Unscripted Ohio podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Grove. For all the latest Buckeyes news, analysis, reaction, and the best Ohio State community on the entire internet, head over to BuckeyeGrove.com or follow us on Twitter at Ohio State Rivals. Without any further delay, it's time to get unscripted, broadcasting from Podcast Central, a place that is not his mother's basement.
Hey, Mom! We get some meatloaf!
We promise. Here's your host, Kyle Lamb.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
Welcome back to the Unscripted Ohio podcast. I am your host, Kyle Lamb. We are brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com. 75-6, Ohio State looked like world beaters. Got to thank our sponsors, JFQ Lending. All of your mortgage and refinance needs should be handled by a Buckeye licensed in 33 states. More on the way. Please check them out at jfqlending.com. And also thanks to support from GoBus with over 40 stops across Ohio with popular destinations like the Hocking Hills, Mohican State Park, and Ohio's big cities. Visit them at ridegobus.com or call them 888-95-GO-BUS. I tell you what, Miami should probably take GoBus right down Humble Road back to Oxford, Ohio, because they were humiliated. And my man, Chris Drew, host of the Dog Days podcast, who is with me right now. Chris, have you picked up your jaw from the floor after watching that excruciating loss for Miami, where we saw a number of big plays from Ohio State players all the way down the roster, including one of your favorite guys, Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, actually, I had to pick up my jaw about 4 times off the floor seeing what I saw, because I love Justin Fields, so seeing that was like, oh, okay. And then Garrett Wilson, not one big play, but 2 big plays. I was like, oh, okay. So I am grinning ear to ear right now. You know I love Garrett Wilson so much. So seeing him explode twice in the same game, in the same half, oh yeah, I'm feeling really good today.
It's amazing how that game turned on a dime, because the first 6, 7, 8 minutes, I gotta tell you, there were a lot of anxious Buckeye fans on social media and message boards and all over, because Miami came out and really took it to Ohio State. I think the first 7 minutes, it was something like 110 yards to -3. And of course, Ohio State had that safety. And then on the second possession, Miami gets down inside the Ohio State 10. Who am I, Brady Hoke, calling him Ohio? The Ohio State 10. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, now we're going to see what Ohio State is made of, because this is suddenly a game that we weren't expecting. But, of course, it all went downhill from there. Ohio State held Miami to a field goal on that second possession. They get down 5-0 from there. Ohio State goes down, gets a touchdown, and then wound up getting, I think, a yards advantage of like 610 to 13 after that point. So maybe 30 yards total for Miami after that. So Ohio State just clicked on all cylinders after they got down 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, they were at a point, there was a stat out there. At some point, they were scoring 1 point per every 1 minute and 53 seconds. That's the rate that they were scoring at. It was alarming. They played well, and I love games like that. I know a lot of people say, well, no, we don't like blowouts. Well, I like seeing the young guys out there, and Urban Meyer always used to talk about building depth. That's a game where you can build depth. And I enjoyed seeing the young guys out there that really make me smile, like Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams. I mean, I know you sold me on Crowley. I wasn't a huge Crowley believer until, I saw on your Twitter. And then I, went and looked up some highlights and did my research. And I like him a lot. But it's definitely a fun game to watch. And, Kyle, pulling back the curtain a little bit, I had one of my friends from Grand Rapids coming to stay with me this weekend. And he happens to be a massive Michigan fan. So he had to watch the Michigan game and then watch the Ohio State game. So you could imagine how he was feeling after that.
I don't know that we've seen an offensive explosion like this in a long time. There was, relative to competition, Ohio State beat Wisconsin 59-0. I think given the nature of that game and how big it was, that's probably a more impressive performance. And sure, we've seen Ohio State score 77, I think it was, against Florida A&M. It's not that this is unique, but this kind of reminded me of like the mid 90s Buckeyes teams. I think it was David Boston and Michael Wiley's freshman year when they scored 70 points, I think, in back-to-back games early in that year. We haven't seen too many explosions like this. So Ohio State, again, they started slow, but geez, after that, it was just Miami was not stopping them doing anything.
I mean, yeah, 6 touchdowns in one quarter is an alarming, eye-popping number. Like there's no other way around it. Like you saw that, LSU scored 77, Joe Burrow scored 6 touchdowns. I love Joe Burrows, but like seeing that, like Joe Burrow having 6 touchdowns, that's alarming. And then you look at Justin Fields, 6 touchdowns in one quarter. It's like I don't remember anything ever like that. I don't remember such a lopsided game in terms of offensive production at one time. Like that's a little bit absurd. I mean, they scored 70, what? It was like 75 points, and Michigan has scored 78 points all season.
I got to ask you about Joe Burrow. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I want to get back to the game here in a second. But that is an interesting question because Burrow, man, that dude is lighting it up at LSU. Who would have thought that LSU would have become an offensive, not just offensive, passing juggernaut rather than their identity of being conservative and winning games with the run game and their defense. It's not their defense winning games for them right now. It's not the run game winning games for them. It's Joe Burrow in that pass game, putting up 400 yards in 3 quarters against Vanderbilt on Saturday. And boy, that guy, that dude has them rolling right now. So it begs this question. If Ohio State could have seen the future and done anything different, do you look, I think I know the answer, Chris. But do you go with 2 years of Joe Burrow knowing that Dwayne Haskins doesn't do what he did last year and you don't get Justin Fields? Or do you take the 1 year of Dwayne Haskins and now the 2 years of Justin Fields? I think everything worked out just right for Ohio State and even for Joe Burrow. But I'm curious if you agree with that.
I'm pretty close to flipping, but I think Dwayne Haskins is generational. Justin Fields is generational. Joe Burrows is really, really special. I'm not sure if he's generational, but I love Joe Burrows. I mean, I got a chance to see him play in the state playoffs. I think his junior or senior year, and just ripping people. And I was in the press box watching grown men go crazy over Joe Burrow. So I've always had like a lot of love for Joe. I think he's an exceptional quarterback, but I think Dwayne and Justin are both generational. So I like how it worked out, but it's an interesting question. I mean, it definitely is.
Did you see the story last week about Joe saying that maybe he could be the number one? This was sourcing Pro Football Focus, who was quoted on the record, sourcing that maybe Joe Burrow could be the number one quarterback taken in the NFL draft next year. That seemed crazy to me. And then he goes out and he has another huge performance. He's completing like 80% of his passes this year. He's putting up some astonishing numbers. I always felt he was undersold by Buckeye fans when he was at Ohio State. I thought that was more of a competition with Haskins than people gave credit for. And the coaching staff was having a hard time naming a starter because Burrow was a better quarterback than I think he was given credit for. But do you subscribe to the idea that he could be not just a first-round quarterback at next year's NFL draft, but maybe taken ahead of Tua? I don't buy it because I think the Dolphins are just all in on Tua, but I think if it were any other team, I'm starting to think maybe there could be something to that.
I am on the train. I had a show earlier, and I was talking about my kind of guys that I'm looking for in the NFL in terms of just at a naked eye who I would take. Personally, I would take Burrows over Tua. And I don't want to sound too much like a homer, but that's like a preference thing. I like quarterbacks that are a little bit bigger, that don't lack arm strength, and I kind of like that mental toughness and that competitiveness that I see in Joe Burrows every day. I think that's a real culture changer. But I think you're right though. I think Miami is just all in on Tua. But I mean, if you look at just kind of their bodies of work this year and kind of who they're around and the talent they're playing with and kind of their numbers, if we never saw Tua play in a national title, if we never saw Tua last year and it was just this year's tape, I don't know how you say no to Joe Burrows if you're an NFL team.
Well, I got to tell you, Chris, college football I think this is a really good year for the college football quarterback because we're seeing stellar performances from Tua, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence has actually had a slow start to this year, but we know he's a good quarterback, and I think by the end of the year, he's going to be really good. Fromm
Right,
is
and Jacob Eason, I want to throw in there. Jacob Eason threw a couple
right.
balls earlier this year that made me scream. I think he could be QB1 at the end of this.
How do you think if you're Georgia? Because I watched that Georgia Notre Dame game, and I thought to myself, to his credit, Jake Fromm looked really good in the second half, made the plays when he needed to. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But you could tell Georgia just doesn't trust that pass game right now. And I kind of wonder if it'd be different if they had Eason or if they had Justin Fields there. How are you watching those two if you're a Georgia fan right now, knowing your own program doesn't trust your pass game? And it's not all Fromm's fault. I think some of it is that those young receivers. But Cager, by the way, looked great on Saturday in the second half. He could wind up being a stud, but they're still easing that pass game along.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, the only way you can watch them is when you watch when you watch Fields and when you watch Eason, you watch them and you punch air, and then you go to Twitter and saying, "Yeah, Fromm's better than these guys." It's just denial because at this point, Kyle, I'm not sure. Like if you go through and watch all of Jake Fromm's snaps, there are times where he goes ice cold passing wise. There are times where he looks like a good quarterback, but it feels like they let two exceptional, like special quarterbacks walk away for just a good quarterback. So if you're Georgia fans, I think you see that, but I think you're just in denial till the wheels fall off. You're in denial.
When you said how they watch, I thought you were going to say they watch with a bottle of Jack in their hand, because it feels like that's what you got to do when you see Eason playing the way he's playing out at Washington and Fields playing the way he is at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's, out of those three quarterbacks, the guys that are creating explosive plays are the guys that left. Like I like Fromm. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think in terms of what he does for Georgia, it's more of a game manager thing. Like you trust him when the O line's going playing well. You trust him when the receivers are getting wide open. You trust him when the running game's going really well. Like I don't know how you let two exceptional special quarterbacks walk away. I get that's sometimes how it happens. But it's the year of truth for Kirby Smart, and I'm curious to see how this unfolds for all Georgia fans as we go through the year, depending on how Eason ends up and how if Fields ends up in New York. I mean, what are Georgia fans' reaction going to be?
Well, we had another data point on Justin Fields on Saturday. It's 4 games now, and yeah, the competition is going to get extremely tough as the season goes along. I'm not even sure it's going to get tougher this week, at least as far as Fields is concerned and the offense is concerned, because Nebraska certainly is going to give Ohio State as much as they can handle offensively. But that Nebraska defense, I don't think it's better than Cincinnati. I don't think it's better than Indiana. I'm not sure this is a huge test for the Ohio State offense. And Fields, he could have put up 12 touchdowns on Saturday if they wanted to keep him in the second half. He had 6 in one quarter, so just imagine what he could have done if they kept him in longer. But I don't think this Nebraska defense is really a step up in competition. Well, on the other side of the ball, certainly the Nebraska offense with Adrian Martinez, and they put up 700 yards against Illinois on Saturday. So I think that's going to be a test. But as far as Fields and the offense, Chris, I think it's status quo on Saturday. I really do.
Yeah, I expect him to stay the course. Obviously, Nebraska can't really match up with the athletes that we have out in space, and that's kind of been the thing for Ryan Day. Get your athletes in space. And I expect Justin Fields to take another step in the right direction and continue to play better and better every single week. So, yeah, I'm not worried about the offense at all. Like you said, it's status quo. It's Justin Fields with Ryan Day. I mean, I'm not concerned about them laying an egg at all. My concern would be on the defense. I mean, not really concerned, but a real test for Jeff Hafley, who I've loved this new cover 3 look. I love it. So I am curious to see how the defense plays now that finally there's a real maybe a little quiz, not quite test, but a quiz against their defense.
And this Ohio State offense, the interesting thing about it is we're already seeing Ben Victor play the best football he's played in his career consistently. We've always seen him flash with a play here, a play there, a touchdown here, a touchdown there. We've seen that before, but he is turning into a legitimate, well-rounded receiver who you can count on from play to play, possession to possession, game to game. And we know what Ohio State has with KJ Hill and Austin Mack. Garrett Wilson is stepping to the forefront. Jamison Williams, my goodness, that dude can fly. That touchdown he housed in the second half of that game on Saturday, good grief, if they can get him into that rotation by the end of the year, it just goes to show this Ohio State team has just a plethora of weapons on its team.
Yeah, Ben Victor, man, when I watch him, he's looking like a baby AJ Green now. Shane Larson made a good observation. He's really attacking the ball with his hands now, and his routes look a lot cleaner. Jameson Williams, dude, he looks like a supercar. When he caught that ball turned in 3 steps and he's at 60, I was like, holy smokes.
It was
Like
amazing how fast he put the pedal to the metal on that. Because, like you said, he caught it with his back turned to the defensive back. He took one step and then just flew to the end zone.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I think that he's got to be the fastest on the team, right? He's got to be the fastest on the team, right?
I would honestly love to hear what they keep times on that on the 40-yard dash. I would love to hear who the fastest is because I don't think we've heard that. Usually we hear it every year. I don't recall hearing that, but I'm going to have to dig that up because if he's not, he's got to be right up there.
I mean, if he's not, who is it? Is it Chris Olave? Like I know he ran a 10.6 in high school in the 100-meter, but I just can't think of anyone that would be faster than him.
Yeah,
like he looked incredible.
It's really exciting if you're an Ohio State fan because this offense is setting up not just to be great the rest of the year, but they clearly have weapons going forward. I know there was a lot of hand wringing when Bijan Robinson wound up committing to Texas instead of Ohio State after about a month where it looked like the Buckeyes had him ready to go. And I know people said, well, the running back recruiting is really disheartening. It's worrisome. But look at that roster now. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is probably gone after the year. I think we all expect that. We all anticipate that. Nobody seems to deny that he's probably NFL bound. But now look at Master Teague. Look at Marcus Crowley. Steel Chambers looked really good on Saturday. I think Ohio State's running back situation is just fine, even if Dobbins does, in fact, leave after the year.
Yeah, of all the things, I'm not worried about it. I still trust that they're going to get dudes, even though they might not be 5-star guys. I mean, they evaluate their guys, and they don't always get the highest ranked guys, but they get their guys. And B, I trust Tony Alford. I mean, that he's going to develop running back. Excuse me, and I mean, he has not failed in terms of developing running back yet. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Is Chase Young as good as Nick or Joey Bosa?
He's better.
You think so?
I think so. I know I might catch a lot of flack, but when I see him, he pops every single play. He flashes every play. Now I think Joey was the same deal. Joey was incredible. Joey made a lot of plays, but it just feels different with Chase Young out there, and I don't know why. He's flying around. He looks a little faster. His get off looks a little better. We're seeing less of the effort sacks and more of the just beating someone 1v1 sacks. But Kyle, he looks like a guy like I always see flirt with the idea of a defensive player ending up in New York for the Heisman ceremony. And I never got that feeling with either of the Boses. I have that feeling now with him. I know that there's so many loaded, there's going to be some crazy stats and the quarterbacks are going to put up ridiculous numbers and Jonathan Taylor's going to put up insane numbers. But I never got the feeling that either of the Boses was even close to being in Heisman consideration. And some of that is because of the injury and some of that's because of other stuff. But with Chase Young, when he's on the field, I just feel like I'm watching the best football player in America. I feel like you could drop him onto any NFL team and he would start right now.
In 4 games, he has 7 sacks and 7.5 TFLs. That's almost 15 tackles behind the line of scrimmage so far through 4 games of the season. I know the competition is suspect, but that's insane.
Yeah, the competition may be suspect. So what though? He's not playing the second half. Like those numbers I don't know his second half snap numbers, but I guarantee you it's probably under 5.
I will say this. I don't know if his game yet translates in terms of run stopping as well as either of the Boses, especially Nick. I don't know if he's there yet, but as a pure pass rusher and a disruptor behind the line of scrimmage, he might be better. He really might.
I mean, there were a couple times, like especially when he was on the left side, kind of flying around for his first strip sack. I said, ooh, as soon as the snap started, because he was already he looks like he looks like some sort of weird like Miles Garrett hybrid. And it's crazy to watch, and I love what the passion he plays with. I mean, incredible passion. I love Chase Young. I talk about him all the time. Like I feel like whenever I watch the Ohio State defense, I'm watching two of the best 5 players in college football, and including the best player in college football.
Could you imagine if this Ohio State defense played Michigan this week? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in late November between these two teams. Okay, Michigan may wind up being a lot better in November. Ohio State may not improve from here until then. It's too early to predict what's going to happen in Ann Arbor later this year. But could you imagine if this Ohio State team played that Michigan offense right now, as we saw Michigan play Wisconsin? What do you want to name your score? Could you tell me what you think that game would be right now?
It would be 60-5, and then they would knock Michigan back. They would knock Michigan down to the MAC because they're done. Their Big Ten days would be over if they would have played. They would have played Saturday, Kyle. It'd been 60-5.
Michigan has
like there's no
so many issues on offense right now, Chris. They can't run the ball. Their offensive line has taken a step back from last year. They have nobody healthy at running back, and they don't have depth to begin with. The fact that Michigan is so desperate to rely on a true freshman running back that may or may not be a big playmaker, time will tell on that. But the fact that they're so desperate to rely on him just shows how bad their depth is. And you've got a quarterback that I don't think is healthy, and he's not that great to begin with, even when he is. And they don't have a lot of big-time playmakers at receiver. They've got guys who can go up and catch the ball really well, but they're not going to outrun you. That Michigan offense has so many problems right now. And that's not even getting into the fact that they just got mowed over by the Wisconsin run game on Saturday. 352 yards rushing. That was an annihilation from start to finish.
Charles Woodson came on the Fox college football kickoff show, and he said that he was embarrassed and that Michigan looked like a team that didn't watch an ounce of tape and was surprised that Wisconsin was running it down their throat.
It's
like that. That's all you gotta know.
I expected the issues offensively for them because of the injuries, because of the fact that they have an offensive identity crisis. They don't know if they want to be a spread team. They don't know if they want to be a pro style team. They're kind of caught in between. I get that. They don't have the personnel to be truly one of either. So they're kind of caught in the middle. So I expected some of the issues, especially knowing Charbonnet was not healthy coming into this game. And yes, I'm going to do a victory lap on that once more. But he wasn't healthy, and I think everybody that watched that game finally saw what I was saying all week. 3 touches, two carries in that game. But I expected the offensive problems. I did not expect the Michigan defense, regardless of what it was last year and how it got exposed at the end of the year. I did not expect the Michigan defense to be shredded by Wisconsin the way it was on Saturday.
Yeah, the defense looks broken. Like, they look broken. There were times where Jonathan Taylor's a great running back, but a couple of those holes he ran through were the size of literally a double door, like double doors. That's how big the holes were. Like, players were out of position. They look slow. There's no juice. Their offense, like you said, identity crisis, a major one. I'm fully convinced that Josh Gaddis wasn't calling plays at Alabama. And I'm not convinced that Jim Harbaugh has taken his paws out of the offensive war room, because it looks like it's like this weird mix where they're fighting back and forth. It's ugly. I almost feel bad for Michigan fans, and then I remember how they acted on Twitter, and then I don't feel bad. But they're a broken team. I don't know how long this leash is on Harbaugh, but is it time to start measuring it, Kyle, or are we just waiting?
I was asked this question by one of my friends, and honestly, my answer there, I don't think Michigan would fire him in any scenario this year. I think they are still scared to death of what they would become if he's not there. Like, I really think that they look at this as like, well, yeah, we're not real happy with where we're at as a program right now, but where would we be if he wasn't here? Would we be back in the Rich Rod era again? Could it be worse than that? I think that they are just scared to death of the alternative. You know, the expression, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think that's how they look at this. It's like, this isn't really the savior we thought we were getting. But what would we be if we didn't have him as our coach?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of sense that as well. But at the same time, I mean, how I guess that as an Ohio State fan, I just expect excellence every year. So this is kind of foreign territory for me. But I would feel like, this program isn't going to get any better unless you stop kind of running it like you're scared of what's on the other side. Like they got to get to the other side at some point.
On the other sideline in this game, the Wisconsin side, what do you make of that Wisconsin team? Is that just how worried should Ohio State fans be about Wisconsin? Because I'm not sure that this game really tells us. I think that they are a really good team for sure. I think they've got a solid defense. That front seven plays the run really well. They didn't get a lot of pass rush against Shea Patterson on Saturday. I think that's a little bit of a concern for them defensively, is they didn't get to the quarterback much, and a team like Ohio State could take advantage of that, but they also dropped a lot of guys into coverage too. So I think that's part of it. And we know about the run game. Jonathan Taylor is as good of, I keep wanting to say Jonathan Taylor Thomas for some reason, but that run game is really good. Jonathan Taylor is one of the best backs in the country, if not the best. The line is really good. Jack Cohen looked tremendous, but I do think we need to take the game with a grain of salt, because I think Michigan is just that broken right now. So just how good is Wisconsin in your mind, and how worried should people be?
I'm not sure if I'm ready to say worried yet. I just characterized Michigan as kind of a broken program, so I'm not sure this kind of went over a broken program really has me worried. And on the flip side, I don't really get too worried about teams like that style of team. Sometimes they seem a little one dimensional. They did a good job though getting their guys ready. They don't get a lot of pass rush at all. They do drop a lot back into coverage. But the one thing about Ohio State through the years is I feel like we play our best against the best competition. And I think that is still going to hold true with kind of the personality of Ryan Day. So I'm not too worried. I would be more worried if I saw more explosive athletes on the outside. I don't. Their best athlete is Jonathan Taylor. And if you're not getting a pass rush against Ohio State, then I just think that Ryan Day and Justin Fields are going to sit back there and pick you apart. So I'm not too worried yet, but I do want to see more. I'm definitely intrigued. I mean, maybe not worried quite yet.
Well, Ohio State opened as a 15-point favorite this weekend against Nebraska. But now this schedule is interesting, because we all looked, I think, at the middle of this schedule when it came out, or especially in the preseason this year. It actually came out a few years ago, but when we looked at it in the preseason this year, we all said, well, this is a really daunting stretch right here, because you have at Nebraska, you have Michigan State, you have Northwestern, and then Wisconsin back to back to back to back. And we all thought that, well, that could be a really, really tough schedule right there. I'm not saying that Northwestern, Michigan State, and Nebraska this weekend aren't capable of beating Ohio State, because we know that. We've just seen an Ohio State program that lost to Purdue and Iowa in back-to-back seasons. So we know that these teams can sneak up on people. But I will say this. They all look like, to use your phrase, one-dimensional teams. And I think these next 3 weeks are not as daunting as they once looked. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio State does the next few weeks leading up to that Wisconsin game. Can they get by this explosive Nebraska offense this week? Michigan State, Northwestern are very much defensive-oriented teams. Michigan State's offense is very, very bad right now. And what does that say about Northwestern, that they got blown out by Michigan State the way they did on Saturday? So I'm curious to see how Ohio State does against a schedule that suddenly, I'm not saying it's easy, it's just not looking as tough as it did before the year.
Right. At the beginning of the year, this was kind of the stretch that I was a little bit worried about, given kind of the past mistakes that were made and kind of what I expected from each of these teams. I thought Northwestern was going to be pretty solid. I mean, I'm an Elite 11 watcher. I watch all that, and I trust Trent Dilfer. And Hunter Johnson, I thought he was going to be a really good quarterback for them. Their offense doesn't look anything what I thought it would. I'm less scared of Nebraska as everyone else was, but this, I mean, it looks. I don't want to say it looks like you can. It's not going to be a no-brainer that we walk through these teams, but it definitely looks way less scary than it did 2 months ago, without a doubt.
We both agree that the offense, we think, will keep the ball rolling this Saturday with no problem in Lincoln. They're going to score points. I think we both agree that. That doesn't mean they're going to win necessarily, but that does beg the other half of the question. will the Ohio State defense still look like the championship defense it's shown through 4 weeks against a really, really explosive Nebraska offense?
I think Jeff Hafley and Madison are so excited to kind of have their defense get their first test so they can kind of show everybody, like, hey, things are different now. Things are different now. I think that they are all chomping at the bit to kind of get their defense out there and have them kind of explode for a game. I think they're ready. So I'm really excited for that. When I hear Jeff Hafley talk, that's kind of the sense I get, that he cannot wait for his first real test because he's a guy that's going to be ready and he's going to have this defense 110% ready. So that's where I'm at without trying to sound like too much of a homer. My belief is when I hear Jeff Hafley talk, he's got like a certain competitive itch to him. And I think that he's excited and I'm excited for that. And I think this defense has a lot more that we haven't seen. I think they've kind of tried to keep it pretty vanilla here to start. And then once they start playing explosive deep offenses, we're going to see some really cool things from that bullet position.
Yeah, and I've seen everything I think we need to see from the offense. The offense is legit. It doesn't mean they're going to be explosive every week. They can run into a good defense. They could be legit and run into a good defense and have a bad game. That can happen. But I'm 99% of the way there with this defense. And if they can show out this Saturday, I will be ready to say, yes, this is a legit, absolute, bona fide national title contending team.
I think I agree with you. And kind of hearing how excited Damon Arnett was kind of before that Miami of Ohio game, like he's excited. He feels like this team can win a natty. I'm about 95% sold on this defense. I think they're right there. I think Jeff Hafley's brilliant, and I think Madison, the stuff that I was reading Ross Fulton's tweets and a couple other things, kind of reading about the stuff that he's doing to confuse and throw off rhythms of offenses before the snap is even snapped. Kyle, like I'm almost there. I'm almost there, and then all these guys on the back end. I think that they're so deep on the back end. That I'm not worried about. I like having rotations and guys come in and fresh legs come in and new looks. And I'm excited to see this bullet position kind of grow into something like insane, because I think that they've kind of kept it a little bit under wraps. But I think later on we're going to be hearing that bullet phrase all over the place as soon as they start playing some explosive offenses.
You hear the term connected so often in sports. You hear it in basketball. You hear it in hockey. You hear it in football. And that term really, I think, applies to this defense right now. They look like they're connected. They're on the same page. They're not miscommunicating. They have great chemistry. They celebrate plays together. There just seems to be, I've called it the it factor here in the past couple of weeks, but they do it seems like they have it.
The juice. They have juice, as Urban Meyer would say.
How awesome has he been? Not just his work in the booth as an analyst, but like his facial expressions and his reactions. He's so much enjoying watching Ohio State's success from the booth. And I know, you're not supposed to be a homer up there, but it's kind of funny watching him take so much pride into what Ohio State's doing and kind of snickering under his breath to Michigan's troubles. It's you could tell it's there, and he's got that sly smile for the entire broadcast.
Yeah, there was the one day they asked him. They said, "Is this Michigan's year?" And that smile came out, and he said, "Year for what?" And that's when I tweeted, "Can we get him another pair of gold pants?" Like again and again. I think I've seen people talk about him. He's been exceptional. I love that smirk, and they've caught him a couple times. He said "we" a couple times. Like he obviously still is really invested and really rooting for the Buckeyes. But it's great. He's gotten to watch kind of the ascension of this Ohio State program, which is insane to say because what he was doing at Ohio State was unreal. And now they're ascending to another level, it feels like, or at least at the moment. And then watch his rival crumble when it was supposed to be, quote unquote, his time. It's been a joy to watch. I've switched over and I love watching him on the noon kickoff.
Well, in
show.
all seriousness, his Ohio State homer attitude aside, Urban's playbook and his analysis on there has just been phenomenal. And he has taken a guy that didn't pay much attention to college football analysis the last several years because College Game Day jumped the shark for me a long time ago. It's not that I never watch it anymore, but I lost interest in it, and it's not must-see television for me personally. So I have not been big on college football analysis, but he has taken me to somebody that didn't care much about it. And now I've been eagerly awaiting the pregame and postgame shows over there on Fox because he's doing such a phenomenal job breaking things down. And it's not that Fox is not guilty of the narrative things that we see on television all the time. They still do it too, but they're doing it much less. And they are putting out a phenomenal product right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. In fact, I actually lost all interest in College Game Day. It got to the point, Kyle, where during the college football season, I would go play basketball every Saturday morning to kind of burn time, and I didn't want to watch any of that. And now I'm not playing basketball Saturday mornings. I'm kind of hanging out doing some tidying up, and then so I'm all nice and ready for kind of seeing Urban Meyer. He's done an exceptional job. Some way less narrative stuff. I mean, at the end of last year, the stuff that Game Day was doing really ticked me off when they, all the Tua and Kyler Murray talking, and no mention of Dwayne Haskins, and then talking about it's too messy to have an interview with three people. Just the stuff they were doing just really bothered me. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's been exceptional. Urban's playbook, I can't sing about how much I love it. I really enjoy it. And it's kind of something that should be done on the other network, but it's not being done. And Fox is really taking advantage of it, and I enjoy it. It's become must see.
What's your honest take on Urban and the USC rumors? Do you see that coming to fruition? I'm not there yet. I think that I think he'll take a look if the job is offered to him. I think he'll consider it, but I also think there's a part of him he's having fun right now, and he's never going to fully have that itch scratched to coach again. That's always going to be there. But I think if he knows he can keep happy, he can keep content with what he's doing, making money, talking about football, keep busy and not thinking about it, then I think he will put his health as the number one priority. And I don't think he'll take that job. But I also don't think he's willing to close the door just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a different Urban Meyer than the one that left Florida. He's a grandparent now. Shelley seems really, really happy from what I've seen on Twitter. He seems really, really happy and like he's enjoying himself. I just can't see it happening. I think he's really rooting for the success of Ryan Day as well, and has kind of had his fingerprints all over that, and talking to Ryan Day when he can. And I think that him kind of going to USC might cause some problems for Ryan Day, and I don't think that's something he wants. Like, I think that if he goes to USC, then there's a realistic chance that like Mickey Marotti and guys that he brought from Florida and all that go over to USC. And I don't think he wants to put anyone in that situation because A, I think he's happy right now. B, I think his family's in a good space. And C, I think he's having a lot of fun doing what he's doing and rooting for.
Yeah, he's
for
keeping really busy. You hit the nail on the head. He's got his grandkids now. He's got his duties at Ohio State. Remember, he is an associate athletic director now. So he's got stuff and responsibilities there. He's got his new restaurant that's opening up next week. And, of course, he's got the Fox duty. So, yeah, he's got a lot of things now he can kind of keep busy with, where when he retired the first time, technically the second time at Florida, because he actually retired the year before and then got talked into coming back. But when he retired at Florida the first time around, all he had was the ESPN gig where he was calling a game one day a week, and that was it. And I just don't think he had enough to keep him occupied, and he didn't have that. He wasn't able to be satisfied being out of the coaching industry. And I think he went back, he won a national title at Ohio State. He had the 7-0 Michigan record. I think he can live with himself if that's all he ever does as a coach.
Right. And he didn't, when I watched him on his ESPN days, he did not seem that into it. It didn't seem like he was enjoying himself. So I think that's an important part here. It looks like he's having a ton of fun, and he's still plugged in and involved with Ohio State. So I can't see him going to USC. I'm not going to be super shocked. Like, I'm not that naive if something does end up happening. But right now, if someone asked me to bet my house on it, I would bet my house that he doesn't go to anywhere else. I think that he's done.
Well, before we wrap up, Chris, Ohio State basketball did pick up an anticipated commitment on Sunday afternoon. Zed Key, 6'8", power forward out of New York. He's a 2020 kid. He will join Eugene Brown III, which committed to Ohio State last week. Chris Holtmann, man, He's getting it done. He's putting together it. They've got themselves a couple of 5-star guys, borderline 5-star guys. I would say more accurate, the 4-star guys that are right there knocking on the door as being 5 stars. But what he has also done is he's gotten that top level talent, and he's building a roster that's very, very deep with a lot of guys that look like they're going to be able to come in and contribute for the next several years. I'm not sure if Ohio State is going to be at the national title level yet. That remains to be seen, but they've got a program that I think is going to be very, very good and very consistent for years to come.
Yeah, something me and my buddy Brad talked about a little bit when we were talking about Ohio State basketball and kind of how they've been recruiting. I'm perfectly okay with them not getting all the top 5-star guys. I like kind of the 4-star guys they're getting are highly ranked, but they're not guys that are really going to be up for one and done kind of seasons. They're guys that have a lot of growth and development to do, and I think that's really good when you're building a program. And I think there's a specific target that Chris Holtmann has in mind. Like, I don't think Chris Holtmann's a guy that wants to bring in like 3, 4 one and done guys every year, or even 2 one and done guys every year. I think he's getting guys that will come into the program, grow for 2, maybe 3 years before they go to the league. And I think that's important, especially when you're looking to kind of restore a program and bring a program kind of back to the national spotlight and as a national contender.
I said
again.
this with Alex on Friday, too, when we were having this conversation. It really has kind of changed in college basketball. One thing that has always remained the same, and historically the stats corroborate this, is you always need to have at least one first-round NBA draft pick kind of guy on your roster, that alpha male. You got to have that first-round talent to be able to win a national title. But the interesting thing about college basketball, as we've seen the last few years, the experienced teams, and they're rare in college basketball, but the teams that have them, the Virginias and Texas Techs of the world, you're going to be playing for titles if you have those couple of things. And so Ohio State, I think, if they can have a DJ Carton or Alonzo Gaffney or EJ Liddell, guys like that are NBA first-round type of talents, and fill them around with just solid role players, yeah, that's the type of team that can win Big Ten titles and can get to Final Fours and compete for a national title.
I agree. And it feels like Ohio State has 2 young killers in town in Chris Holtmann and Ryan Day. That's what it feels like, at least from the outside looking in. I'm in Northeast Ohio. I'm not that close, but that's what it feels like.
It really
from over
does.
Here, Kyle.
Ohio State fans are very, very spoiled. They went from Jim Tressel and Thad Matta, and they've slowly progressed, and now it's Chris Holtmann and Ryan Day. I really feel like Ohio State football and Ohio State basketball, a lot of reasons for optimism for the next several years.
I could not agree
Well, Chris,
more.
I thank you for taking the time to step away from your duties as the new Dog Days podcast host. You're doing a great job on that show, by the way. It's really taken off. Browns fans, you can catch Dog Days every Tuesday here on the Unscripted Ohio Network. Chris, I thank you for doing that show, and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm not even a Browns guy, but I'm really enjoying listening to your show every Tuesday.
Thank you. It means a lot. It's been a blessing being able to do that. I've really, really enjoyed it. And then we got some more coming up soon. Cavs Cast with my boy Rocco Nushi, and that will also be on the Unscripted Ohio Network. More details on that soon. I'm super excited. There's no other network I'd rather be on.
Yeah,
Thanks
really
for not
looking forward to
me.
Cavs Cast. In case you have not seen that just yet, I put it out on Twitter last week, but I haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. Chris and Rocco will be doing Cavs Cast, a once-a-week Cavs podcast here on the Unscripted Ohio Network. That'll be rolled out probably sometime in mid to late October, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But we are really excited. I know I'm very excited for that one.
Yeah, I'm juiced. It all happened pretty quickly, but I got the juice. I'm ready, Kyle.
Well, that's
going to
wrap it up for us. Catch Chris on Twitter at @the_Chris_. That's Chris with a K. KRIS_Drew. Catch me on Twitter at KYLam8. Catch the show Unscripted Ohio on Twitter at UnscriptedOhio1. You can hear us, well, really 5 days a week. We have 7 shows now. We run it Monday through Friday, but you can catch us 7 days a week. There are 7 total shows throughout the week. Listen to us on our flagship podcast, Unscripted Ohio, here on BuckeyeGrove.com, and all of the podcasts on the Unscripted Ohio channel, which includes SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. That is going to do it for us. Hope everybody has a great week. Make sure on Tuesday you catch Johnny and Corey with the Scarlet and Gray podcast, and the aforementioned Chris with the next edition of Dog Days. Hope everybody has a great Monday. See you next time.
You can get new episodes of Unscripted Ohio on Mondays and Fridays exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things Ohio State.